My guest today is Dameon D.Bledsoe. He's an American recording artist, an author, and a real estate professional. He self-published his debut literature, America's Young Black Male 2000, which I've read personally and is dope. I suggest you guys go get it. He put that out in 2018. And he's been on a mission to inspire audiences by way of sharing his vulnerable testimony. And that's honest, man. Like, he really kind of went into it in that book, and I appreciate it. As a writer and a performer in the hip hop genre, he's actually have over 15 releases from 2010 to current day. As a realtor, Dameon has sold millions of dollars in the busy San Francisco Bay Area market and is a part of Team Fast, one of the top producing real estate brokerages in the Bay. Enrichment is his overarching theme for this father, husband, artist, businessman. I mean, he's a Renaissance man. The guy does everything. He can hoop a little bit too, I think, still, hopefully. But he accredits all that to being a believer, and that's his fuel to enrich. So again, Dameon, thank you. I appreciate you being on, brother.
Thank you.
If I shorted anything there, if you have anything to add, go ahead and drop that in there.
I don't like to elaborate when it comes to me. I try to let the work do the talking, but I appreciate such a gracious intro and the invite in the first place. Always good to talk to my peoples and people that are looking to do the same thing as me, which again is enrich those that are in our community, our circle,
Right. Yeah. That's the goal, right, man? Like, I know for us, we come from the same city, not necessarily the same neighborhood, but same city. And I just wish, like, during our youth, we had people giving back. I know there were people, right? There was always somebody that was trying to give back to the community or doing something for the community. But shoot, we needed more, right? Like, we needed more people reaching back and helping out for sure.
Well, it was more of those one-offs. Like, I remember Tim Hardaway had came out with the Nike Air Raids, and so they made this special Nike hoop court in North Richmond, and that was cool. But again, it was more about Nike and the visibility they could get out of it than it was the kids of North Richmond. So, it's cool that the hood got a brand new basketball court, but Tim Hardaway and Nike weren't coming back there every other week to check on these kids and see if they were going to school, and if mom and dad, grandma were able to feed them and give them lunch so it was always cool to have the one-offs in the quote unquote hood, but what's necessary, I think, and we'll go more into it though, but it's just dialogue like these and constant representation of people that came from those areas and that are still looked up to be an example for those people instead of just backpack giveaways and come get a turkey for Thanksgiving, give them a fishing pole. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I totally appreciated stuff like that, right? Like, I know you did as well. Like, it was always really cool to have that kind of stuff happen in your neighborhood, to be like, oh, yo, I met Jose Canseco. He came to a baseball camp. That was always dope. Or you have like DeMarco Farr used to do football camps, and he was from Richmond. Like, so it was cool to see those people, but they wasn't there all the time. You know what I mean? It wasn't they weren't around. You know what I mean? It was cool for the weekend, and it was cool to talk about, but then reality sets back in, right? And so the whole idea with this podcast and with, my mission kind of focusing on fathers is to, if we're a generation that didn't, you can kind of, depending on who you are, didn't have fathers in the home as much as maybe they should have been, then who do we learn fathering from, right? A lot of us are fathering in spite of, or fathering off of an example that we saw somewhere else and not like really close to us. And so my whole goal is to like empower fathers. Like, I know so many dope dads, and you're one of them, right? I know so many dope dads, and I want to try to like spread that message, right? And have brothers on here talking about what fatherhood means to them, and how, like you said, enriching fatherhood can be, and how starting with the father, we can kind of spread out through the community, right?
No, and I mean, that's awesome in itself, because a lot of us don't look at it, don't analyze what the job is before taking on the role. like, most of us were thrown into the role. And, again, I have peers and, you included, like people that actually did some type of family planning, but in a lot of cases, it wasn't necessarily the plan. So it wasn't a lot of analytical thinking going into it. Like, oh, I'm going to be this type of dad. I'm going to have this type of intention. It was more reactive. And, I mean, again, like you said, a lot of us knew what we didn't want to be as dads, whether it was out of personal experience or by way of being a witness to just the type of father you didn't want to be. But again, the actual thought and game plan, I would definitely say is missing, again, in terms of intention as a father.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, like my dad was around kind of like when I was young, he was kind of absent. Him and my mom went through their thing. He went through his own stuff and he was kind of in and out, but he made his way back. He got himself together. And they kind of reconciled their own little differences. But I feel like for me personally, I was chasing something and I didn't know what it was until I found out, my wife was pregnant. And then I was like, oh, fatherhood, that's it. Like, this is the role I was built for. Like, this is what I'm here for. Like, it was figuring out like, what is life all about? And that was it for me. Like, I knew right away, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. And it wasn't even because of my dad or my stepdad, either one of them. Like, they did what they could do. I just felt like that had been my calling in life. And it's great, man. It's been a really, really rewarding experience up to this point, and I hope it continues to be that way. Right.
It looks like it.
All right, do our best.
Right. Along the same lines, though, I remember I was living in Las Vegas. I did 1 year of junior college at DVC at Diablo Valley up here in the Bay. And things didn't work out after my first year there. I played basketball that season. Didn't really work out. I knew I wasn't returning. So my mom ended up moving to Vegas. I moved with her. And I was in the first year of like a stalemate. Like I wasn't in school. No, I was registered in school, but I didn't have a team to play for. And that was the first year in years that I hadn't played basketball or been a part of a program. And so I was searching, and I remember riding in the car and I was like, man, I just want something else. I want something bigger. And I started breaking down in tears. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just don't feel important enough. And God's honest truth, I didn't do it on purpose, but less than a year later, my son was on the way. And that became my purpose and motivation and everything for the up until now. You know what I mean? Up until I had my second kid in 2018, like that fatherhood drove me to want to be better.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. So you have two now, right, and one on the way.
Yep. I have a 17, will be 18-year-old, 3-year-old, and a baby due in a couple weeks here.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I remember when you left, right? Because I was at DVC at the time too. I remember when you left and went to Vegas, and then we didn't travel like that back then. Like I wasn't just jumping to Vegas. So I had seen you, and then I was gone to Michigan like that next year too. So like it kind of lined up. We were both out at the same time, and then I remember, I don't know who told me, was like somebody was like, D having a baby. And I'm like, oh man, that's wild. Right. Like, because at that time, 18, I was probably 17 still. I'm like, yo, I can't imagine what that's like. And as far as I know, right, as far as I know from seeing you, and there was a long time period where, we were doing our own different things, but like seeing you on social media and different things like that, and running into you, like, you embraced that father role, right? As far as I know, like you embraced that father role. Like, I don't know that I could have at that age, right? Like, I don't know, like I was never like really an immature person, I don't think, but no. I don't know that I could have been like, all right, I'm gonna be a dad now. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was
Well,
I was too selfish at that point in my life. And I mean,
and that's the funny thing about it though, is that I felt like I was too immature to balance the books. Like I said is either this or is that. So I chose getting a job and trying to do the whole adult thing and take care of my responsibilities at the best of my ability at the time when I'm 21 years old. And I totally said, whatever for school, I'll figure it out somewhere along the way. And I was too immature to see that I had the opportunity to make all that happen at once. But again, being so young and having the ideas that I did of fatherhood, I thought it was all or nothing. And so I put my all into it. I'm like, all right, well, I'm a dad. This is what I'm gonna do. So, no degree, no more basketball. It's all about him. Now in retrospect, I realize that was the best opportunity I had when you have one kid and still not a lot of responsibilities besides that, and youth on my side. Like I could have did it all at once. But yeah, that was my reaction to it. I was just like, okay, I know what I got coming. So 100% on that.
yeah, that's dope. That's dope, man. So being a young father, how old were you when you had when you
20, 21. I turned 21 in July and my son was born that next month in August.
okay, so 21, trying to figure out your own life, right? Trying to figure out your own situation, but made the commitment, right? Like you said, you picked one, right? You couldn't balance
Yeah.
two, so you picked one. What were some of the struggles that you faced at that age? You know what I mean?
At 21, still again, immaturity was running rampant in my life. I still had no even idea of financial responsibility at the time. I was not mature enough or stable enough to handle somebody else's emotions and issues as well as mine in terms of being in a relationship with his mom. And yeah, it was tough to balance all of those things as a 21-year-old, still largely trying to figure out myself. But yeah, financially, I definitely had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to pay rent and make sure that we ate. And I had no outlook on what the future might be. And so my aspirations were kind of all over the place
Right, right.
in the same way.
Yeah, shoot. I mean, I was 29 and I was trying to figure out like, okay, all right. So now it's been us for this for as long as it's been. Now we got another little person coming in, and you're dealing with the emotions that go along with pregnancy and riding that hormone thing. And now we got to try to figure out, okay, I gotta get a room and all this stuff for this kid. And you know what I mean? Like all these things are coming up. And I know for me, even as an older like person, it was a struggle. So like, I mean, at 21, again, I don't know that I was in a space where I could have even handled it. You know what I mean? Like I would have needed some
Yeah,
support for sure.
yeah, yeah. And that luckily at that time there were more people around that could help us out, because like now my mom lives in Vegas and family kind of scattered, and my wife's family is all out of state as well. So now we don't really have any sort of help with our kids, but we're way more able and equipped to deal with the situation present day. But yeah, back then it was so much going on top of just being young and trying to figure ourselves out. It just created a lot more unnecessary headaches, whereas if we were a little more mature and ready for the situation.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a big piece is like the maturity that comes along with being a little bit older. And I mean, I'm sure, first kid to second kid, like you had so many experiences rolling into the second one, even though there's like the unknown and there's the uncertainty, and you got a son, and now you have a daughter. There's going to be different things. Like you kind of roll into it like a veteran. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
I've been to training camp before. I know what I'm doing.
A little bit. Like I didn't want to be too cocky because it was my wife's first kid, and also it had been 15 years since my son was born, so I really was largely a rookie by the time my daughter was born. But at the same time, certain things weren't really a concern for me because I did have that first experience to look back on, and yeah, it was, I was in two totally different spaces, but the intention part is probably the biggest now that I'm searching in my head, trying to compare the two. Just having the intention that I did this time around with my daughter, as opposed to when my son was born, like I was trying to buy us matching Jordans. Now, when my daughter's born, I'm like, trying to make sure I read as many books in front of her as I possibly can, and just being real intent, like I said, about the example that I'm setting for her. Where again, on the opposite for my son, when I was 21 years old, my priorities didn't line up with
Right.
his productivity. So
Okay. Cool. So look, so your family's kind of spread out now, but if I remember correctly, you and your mom used to be real tight. Like
oh
if I
yeah,
remember
oh,
correctly, right?
oh
How
yeah,
is
for
it?
sure.
How is the experience like now? With her being away, like, but when you're in Vegas, I'm assuming she was obviously a little bit more involved with this, maybe, right? Like a little bit more
Oh
involved.
yeah, no, for sure.
But
Yeah, no.
how is that now with him kind of being spread out a little bit?
Oh, definitely. The pandemic, especially, is put a strain on that. She just came and visited for the first time since last February for my son's graduation this past weekend, and that was the first time we've seen her in over a year. So that's super tough. But also just like the family structure of it, my older sister has 4 kids, and 3 of those 4 kids have probably like seven kids amongst them. So my mom is a great grandmother at this point,
Wow.
and I'm still giving her grandkids. So unfortunately, my kids kind of get, and again, no slight to my mom at all. I don't even think she thinks about it, but she's already been on the grandma train for so long. Like my sister made my mom a grandmother when she was like 32 years old. So
Okay.
she's been doing the grandma thing for a long time, so she doesn't even realize that her energy is more or less on her more than it is her grandkids, because she is like 12 deep in terms of great and great grandkids and grandkids. So I try to keep that in mind to not take it personal, but yeah, it's just multifaceted in the way that this whole family structure is built, and why we might not have as much help as younger DB would have.
Right. Just kind of sticking with family, like how is your family structure now? Like how's that going? Because I know your son is now living with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
was
oh man, that was huge. You know, it's probably a whole nother topic, but I was an alienated father for close to like 8 years. Like I couldn't see, there were stretches I couldn't see my son for 2 years, a stretch of over like a year and a half I couldn't see him. So I missed like a good 4 years of being present in my son's life. Like, I mean, I had the Zooms and FaceTimes and all this other stuff, but he was really like kept from knowing me on a deeper level for a lot of his life. So um, in at the end of 2018, yeah, when he came to live with us by way of God, and that's a whole nother long story. But once he finally was able to come live with us in the middle of his sophomore year, like things really turned around for all of us, and the the family structure over here is tight now. Like the 4 of us that coexist in this house right now, and the fifth on the way, like it couldn't be more healthy than than anything I could compare it against. And I'm just super grateful for being in that position and having that responsibility now. But it didn't happen without a whole lot of fight and just a whole lot of learning and trials and self-improvement. Like in the time that I wasn't able to see him, I was able to go back to school and get a degree. I was able to obtain my real estate license to put me in a better position to, afford all of this. I was able to self-publish. So in the time that I was really going through it of missing my son and not being in his everyday life, God was preparing me for the time when he would be with us. And even if it was a shorter time than we would have wanted, he's off to college in August, but nonetheless, it was still important and it was still all within the right time. And I for sure believe that.
Dope. So that's awesome, man. So that's something, it's funny is it's not, I guess it's not funny, but that's like a common thing, man. Some of my homeboys has kind of same situation. Like dudes that want to be, you get like this deadbeat dad thing, right? You hear it all the time, and that's the thing that's advertised, and dudes don't want to be in their kids' lives. But there's a lot of dudes who just don't get the opportunity, like just want to be there, but for whatever reasons, can't be there or not allowed to be there. And I know that's got to be a struggle. Like I couldn't imagine like me and my wife going through going through whatever, like our own things. And then we split up and she like, you can't see your kid. I just couldn't imagine it. You know what I mean? Like I said, like my family and my kids are super important to me. And like, I couldn't imagine time, like a couple years, a year and a half, like you got to be a soldier to deal with a time period like that where you just can't be active.
I mean, again, looking back on it, I can't do anything but praise God for sanity because I swear I did or would have lost it plenty of times within that time. Like I am definitely in amazement that I'm here today to talk about this situation turning around, because it was plenty of days I lost hope in it and faith that things would turn around. And what makes it even worse, like on top of you knowing what your intentions are and what you want to do and what you want in your life, you have someone insisting to you that you aren't worth it, or you're not worthy, or you don't deserve it. I mean, that can drive you insane, because when somebody insists something like that about you so much, it's kind of hard to keep blocking that out and keep just classifying it as nonsense. You start to internalize some of it. And so that hurt for a long time, just taking on some of those emotions that came along with what was being said to and about me. Even though I knew none of it was true. I knew there were holes in all of it, but again, it'll make you feel crazy. So back to the point, like I don't know, other than God sustaining me. I have no idea how I made it through all that, because that was the toughest thing by far that I've ever experienced.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, like your faith, right? Like I mean, I've known you for a long time, and just even more so now on social media, like seeing your Instagram post, Facebook post, things like that. Like there's a lot of reverence for God. And even just talking to you in this last 10, 20 minutes, like you've mentioned, your faith several times, right? Even in the intro, your faith was a big part of it. Like how has that kind of been a pillar for you, right? Like just kind of keeping you propped up when all else was falling down.
Because I really didn't have anything else. Like, I mean, I've within that span of being out of contact, largely with my son, like I was functionally homeless. I'm couch surfing. I'm like all types of things had taken place to where I couldn't even look in the mirror. Like honestly, like physically could not look in the mirror because I was so disappointed. I had no other recourse but to rely on something bigger that was calling me into action every morning. Like I had no idea. I didn't want to wake up a lot of days because I didn't know how I was going to eat some days. I just did not feel any type of positivity about what I had going on, but I knew there was a reason at the end of it all, and just continually getting blessed while in that low season. Like things kept happening for me to where I never got too low to where it was too drastic. By the grace of God, I never had to go sleep in a tent. I never had to go to a shelter. It was always that voice, my mom's voice, my grandma's voice, whoever in my head that's like, if not for the grace of God, there go I, or, it could always be worse. and that was the truth. Like when I had accepted Christ into my life when I was 16 years old, part of my acceptance and dedication was saying, God, whatever you want to do with my life, I have to be okay with that. And so at a certain point, again, even through all the pain and just the toil, I still had to remember what my dedication was. I was like, I gave my life to God when I was 16. And now from basically the age of 17 on up, like I keep bumping against these walls. I keep having the hardest times thinking this is the hardest, and the next hardest comes, more difficulty. So I started to realize at a certain point, like, okay, so this is all about something else. It's not about me, because if it was about me, I'd be in the NBA, quote unquote, no worries. If it was about me, I'd be living a rock star lifestyle and, showing everybody how much money I got. But somewhere along the way, I figured out that life isn't about that. And what I figured out that it's about is what the creator intended. And that's for us to keep pointing back. We only here 100 years or less. This world is, I'm not as educated as I come across. This world is billions of years old. Millions. Right. Anyway, to my point, this is way bigger than any of us that walk the earth as mortals. Is bigger than us. So I had to come to terms with that and just do my part in my short time.
Yeah. So you so you're 16, you got baptized when you're 16?
Yeah.
Okay. And then so I mean, I knew you when you're 16. I don't know if we was going to church like that. Yeah. I mean,
no, definitely not. Still out there tripping.
Right. Like, I mean, I know my mom's was super religious and we was in church all the time, but I was still like everybody else, right, doing whatever we was trying to do because it was cool. And then for me, like, I think it was as I got older and I got away from my family, like, because when you live in a house where your mom's like a pastor and stepdad, like you don't really have a choice, right? Like church is Monday, we're going to church. Tuesday we're going to church. Wednesday, Thursday we got a choir rehearsal. Like every day was something church, right? And I didn't have an option. And she did that, when we was living on the south side. So I didn't have options to go outside and play around. Like I just You know what I mean? Like it was like we going to church, or you going to football practice, or you gonna be in the house, like because you're not gonna be out with these knuckleheads. And I thank her for that now, but I remember how mad I used to be about it. But I say that to say, like, when I got away from that and I had the option, right? Like I could make the choice, it seemed so much easier to be like, you know what? Mom's was right. And all of these things that I heard and all of this, all this, the Bible reading and Bible study and all that stuff just started to click for me. It just made sense. It's like, I'm out here being a knucklehead, or trying to be a knucklehead, kind of, somewhat, right? For no reason. Like it just don't have to be, right? It don't have to be that way, right? And there is something bigger than me. And there's something better after here. And just to like embrace that fully, as an adult myself, like without somebody forcing me to do it, really, really drew me into it even more, right? Because you understand it on a different level, right? Like when your parents are telling you to do something, your mom and dad are telling you to do something, it's always like, they got your best interests at heart, but you're like, come on, mom, like chill out.
You might be overdoing it.
Yeah, like chill out. Come on, that ain't that serious. Come on, man. Like I'll say I'll repent for my sins and I'm gonna be good. Ain't that what you said? Like right? Like you
My
said,
classic line.
right? That's what you said. You told me, like, you know what I mean? And as long as I do that, I'm gonna be good. And then you get older and you're like, man, I just don't need to do that. Like, I
Yep.
just don't need to do it. Like, it's not even that serious.
I think too, though, it's the various degrees of it. Like you said, you had a strict church schedule growing up that you didn't really have a choice. Mine was to a lesser degree, so I think it's no coincidence, that in like comparing our experiences, like is no coincidence that I might have turned up a little more in way of backsliding. But
Right.
to the point, like I think the greatest gift that we can give our kids is the introduction to God. And there's always a fine line to toe, and everything in moderation, but at the same time, more is more when it pertains to God. Again, I know this conversation is me, but looking at you and witnessing your various steps, and I don't know what you did in college, but at the same time, I know you to be a guy that didn't have to take it that far to know it was too far.
Right.
And again, I think it's no coincidence the way you were raised that it happened like that. Me, again, my mom gave me certain outs in the way of church and God, and I've definitely used those once I got of age, but the introduction was still there. So
Right.
yeah, I'm back now, and I found it. But for our kids, I just believe is no greater introduction than to give them something that's greater than them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. Like everybody's gonna kind of arrive to that at their own on their own schedule. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I think a lot of times when religion and faith is kind of forced on you, you rebel against it a little harder. For me, it was never forced on me, but it was just around. Like this is all we did. You know what I mean? So I didn't
yeah,
I didn't have a choice. Like this is just the life that we live. And
right.
so it was easier for me to get on that schedule sooner. And to kind of always have that in the back of my mind. Like when stuff was going on, it was always like, yeah, you probably shouldn't. Like it was like the little the angel and the devil on your shoulder, but
Yeah,
like the devil's
yeah.
like really small, right? And you know what I mean? So, but he would get in my ear every once in a while and be like, yeah, you know what, you should do that. But like I said, as I got older, it just was an easier connection for me to kind of get more in tune with my relationship with God, especially as my relationships with people advanced, right? Like my
Yeah,
relationship with my wife got better as I got older because I had started doing more of the deep work on myself. You know what I mean? Like
right. Yeah,
starting to understand myself and starting to deepen my relationship with God and being more open and aware of what was going on around me allowed me to be a better boyfriend at the time and better husband, and hopefully continue to be a good husband and a great father. And my relationship with God is really what I would say is the foundation of all of that, right? um,
absolutely.
so it's been really like amazing, fulfilling to like for my kids, because we don't I don't kind of to the point where my mom was, I feel like, a little bit too much sometimes. I don't press my kids with it a lot. I just we keep it on them, like it's just every once
Yeah,
just slide it in there where it's smooth. Like, yeah, just make them think it's their own idea. We go to church,
right,
talk about like what happened after, and just cool. Like, not like you got to know the scripture, right? Like, I
right.
don't need you to know it's Ephesians 3 and 6. Like, I don't need that. I don't need it to be like, I don't need you to quote it in the King James version, but like, just kind of give me your interpretation of it, and then,
Yeah,
and just kind of planting those seeds, I guess, is probably more of it. Like, I think my parents they were planting the seeds, they were tilling the soil, they were watering it, like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
There was hardcore gardening. And I'm just
right.
like, we'll plant the seed and then we'll let God, shine the light on it and water it and make it make sense when it needs to make sense.
Hey, either way, you're gonna get fruit. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
yeah,
Okay, we talked about family a little bit. We talked about your faith. You're a real estate in the Bay Area, like real estate agent in the Bay Area. And real estate is crazy. I know we had talked to you a while ago about trying to buy some investment property out there, and yeah, there wasn't investment property numbers.
Yeah.
We had to get a group of people together to get it in out there.
Right, an investment group.
Yeah, or we'd have to move back and take advantage of like some FHA or something like that. But we're in a position where we don't, we're pretty happy where we are. Talk to me a little bit about real estate in the Bay Area and how that's going. Like how everything's going with that.
Real estate is crazy. I'm still largely working on the buyer side, so that's a little more difficult than working with sellers, just because competition is so crazy out here amongst buyers. So you have a listing on the market, you can expect like 10, 15 different people putting in offers on that one property. And so only one buyer gets that property. So again, working with buyers, it can be a little more difficult, and you have to practice patience just because there's so few properties for the multitudes of buyers. But yeah, that's the current state of the market. But the fortunate thing about where I am, for me, on the professional side, is prices are insane. So it doesn't take a lot of transactions to make a good year. And so being in a commission-based profession can be tough anywhere you go, and there's ebbs and flows. There's peaks and valleys. So I've had my great years, and I've had my not so great years, but I definitely can't complain being in this market. And it's just really cool, again, in terms of representation, to show my kids and any other kids that may look like me that it isn't just another rapper or another basketball player, because all that stuff is it's cliche, because there's so few people that actually make a good living in those professions. So it's cool to me to be a representation of what else somebody that looks like me can do.
Right. Well, I mean, that's funny you mentioned that. So you said rapper or basketball player, and you're both of those, right? Like,
Yeah.
you still hoop, still rap. Just had an album come out, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I like it, but I'm biased, right? So I mean, I'm gonna speak for myself. I enjoyed it, and still enjoy it. How often are you hooping nowadays? I know your son plays, right? So he got to be.
Once I haven't quite reached the age yet, so I'm a little bit of a ringer on the team, but I play in the 40 and over league on Sundays, and we've been off the past 3 weeks, so I don't know how much I can offer them right now, playing once a week. But yeah, I play in the old man league right now, as they call it.
Okay.
So I wouldn't still classify myself as a hooper.
Okay.
I'm an old dude with experience in the sport. But yeah, with hoop and rap is more passion for me. With rap music, I really went hard again at a dark time in my life. And here recently I've been doing interviews and kind of saying how I did a lot of things in rap music that I wouldn't have advocated for. But at the same time, listening back to my music, I never really took my message too far. It was more like the life I was living in aspiration of trying to make it in rap. And that just kind of tainted the whole experience for me. But yeah, I took 5 years off from recording at all. And so again, in that time, I got my real estate license. I got my associate's degree. I had finished up my associate's degree and written the book and all that. But after my hiatus, like my approach and again, intent just all changed as far as music is concerned. Like now I could care less if the phone rings for somebody to call me to perform, or I'm not holding out hopes that Jay-Z will call me one day and say, hey, Rock Nation, but no, now it's more pure. Like, I just feel like I do have a lot of words to say, and a lot of my peers and onlookers may not necessarily pick up a book. So music is still my way of reaching them, or whatever my message is. And right now, my message just happens to be my testimony and God, and how you can overcome whatever it is that you think you can't. And yeah, music is allowing me to do that right now. But yeah, it's just a whole different approach.
Yeah, I would say listening along the journey, right? The music has definitely matured. Um, the topics, the delivery, I think everything is matured the way it should, right? Like you
Yeah,
mentioned Jay-Z, and that's one of the things, like, you're my favorite rapper. So one of the things that I love about Hove is, like, you can see, or let me say, you can hear the progression in his music, right? Like
yeah,
he's rapping about what's happening in his life at that time, but like in a way that makes you, it kind of puts you in the seat next to him. You know what I
right.
mean? And you can feel the adult part of it. You know what I mean? You can feel the mature. It's like uh yeah, he's talking. Sometimes he's talking about stuff I can't get with, like, Basquiat's in the bathroom. I'm not there yet. Like, I'm just not there
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
But I can appreciate what he's talking about, and that's,
Right.
again, you know what I mean. Reasonable Doubt Hove is not talking about that, right?
No.
That he's not talking about artwork, or appreciation, or any of that stuff, right? But as
Yeah.
he matured, I'm also maturing. Like your music, for example, same thing, right? Like, as you get older, you're not trying to be you're not trying to be the little whoever,
No.
right? You know
No.
what I mean?
No.
Like that they keep the skinnies and the big shoe. Like, I can't wait till that's over. The skinny jeans and the big shoes. Like, I can't. Man.
I'm skinny. I'm skinny, so I like my jeans a little more snug, but I don't know about those reworked Skechers. Like, that's what the Balenciagas, they look
Yeah.
like Skechers from '95. And
Right.
yeah, anyway. Yeah, the look is one thing, but yeah, the content nowadays is really disturbing. And I just had a conversation with my barber about this the other day. Um, like, yes, we came up in a time where some of uh, the same issues were glorified in our music, but we came up in a time where society was going through it in real time.
Right.
But now, fast forward 20 years, like, we've seen people go to jail for scamming. We've seen people die for saying the wrong thing about the wrong person on a song. We've seen what the glorification of gun violence can do. So to continue perpetuating that those ideals going forward as if we didn't see what the ramifications were is insanity. Like, it is really crazy. And especially for artists that have gone through the cycle and witnessed the same thing that we had. Like, if you're 30 plus and still rapping, and you're still talking guns and drugs and pimping and all that, without adding in some type of remedy or suggesting that there should be, then it's a problem, because it's largely poisoning these kids. Like, the stuff that my 17-year-old listens to right now, I have to give him perspective and game, no matter how much he calls me a hater. Like, I I like new music in terms of how the beat sound and how the particular song might make me feel, but a lot of the lyrics and things that they're suggesting are just not conducive to these babies growing up, and they're not even aware of what they're listening to. They're playing Call of Duty and got the craziest rap music going in the back, but you got these kids openly talking about wanting to commit suicide. No remedy there. You got them
Right.
openly talking about taking as many pills as they can. No problem with that. It is kind of glorified and collecting as many guns as they can. Like police are really shooting kids in the street that look like us. So the more we push to them to carry a weapon and, you know, again, it's just poisoning. So without people to mitigate and give them perspective on what they're hearing, like it's just crazy what our kids are ingesting by way of music and visual these days. So again, with what I'm doing, I just intentionally try to add correction from my own point of view. I'm not like trying to preach at anybody or anything. I'm just telling you, I've seen probably more than half of what these kids have. And I know that there is another side to getting to happiness, which I would assume is everybody's goal, is ultimately being happy, not being rich for a week, not renting some jewelry or having an exotic car for a couple months. Like the longevity and happiness is pretty much what I'm trying to preach, but not preach.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's really, really necessary. I mean, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, talking about like people giving, like you said, solutions, right? Like we were coming up through it, and you were, like you said, there was a couple one-offs, but like I think then people just didn't know, like it was so new. Things that were happening was just so like, oh my God, like it just exploded, right? But now, you know, fast forward 30 years, like we know, and if we, like they say, if you knew better, you do better. And so it's up to us as the role models, the father figures, the actual fathers in these communities and in our kids' friends groups, being the one to be like, yo, that, like, I really like that beat. And sometimes I do like what little whatever his name is saying, like it's catchy, right? Like the hook is fire. But yeah, that's just not gonna work in real life. Like that toting two pistols, like, come on, dog. Like that's not gonna work for you, right? Not only that, but we live in a nice community. Like you go to a nice school, you know, there's parks, like open parks to play at. You know what I mean? It's not a bunch of old dudes hanging out at the park. Like it's a park for kids. You don't live that life, my man. Like you got to stop pretending, because you're gonna get yourself hurt trying to be hard. Somebody that's really hard is gonna find you, or you know what I mean, like or doing different drugs and taking these different pills like that. That ain't it. Like it seemed cool, but like I was talking to somebody, I saw one of my athletes, and this was probably a couple years ago, and I was like, man, like I like Future, and his Future is he's like a diehard Future fan, right? And I'm like, bro, Future is struggling right now. Like, I mean, the music is fire, but like, if you listen to it, my man was going codeine crazy. Like he was, you know, he missing his lady. Like like bro, he's struggling right now. Hey, y'all turning up. Like he talking about like ending his life, and you like, oh, turn it up. Like y'all just not, y'all missing it. Y'all missing it. And I don't know like what Future's message was with it. Like maybe he was putting it out there like, yo, these are real, like we have real problems, and like these are real things going on in my life. And if that was the case, then that's dope. But again, if you don't like put some context around it, you know, people just take it as like, we're gonna turn up and you know, we're gonna pop whatever and do the same thing, because Future did it, and look at him. Right.
And I think that again is the point. There is no context around any of this stuff. It's just, oh, it's just music. Oh, we just having fun. Oh, it's just a song. But now, even again in the rap genre alone, look how many of these young rappers have died either because somebody wanted what they had or because of the drugs that they took. And these artists made maybe one album. Some of them didn't even get that far. Like they might have had a song. And again, without, you know, anybody giving true reflection to it and context of what they were doing and why they were doing it, this stuff keeps on snowballing. And now again, it's just life. You know, somebody dies, move on. Somebody, you know, somebody goes to jail. All right, cool, move on. They don't, like, we largely as a society nowadays, as pop culture, don't really take a lot of these things as serious as they should be taken. And it's no wonder that like it seems like it's getting a little out of hand and worse, you know.
Right. You know what, too? Like I feel like, and I tell people this all the time. Like I'm an old man now. Like I'm not get off my front yard yet. You know what I mean? Like stay off my grass yet, old man. But like I hear myself saying like kids today, or like these
Yeah.
kids today. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
reminds me of like my grandfather saying stuff like that, or like the older dudes in the neighborhood being like, y'all kids this and y'all kids that. And every time I hear myself saying it, I have to think like, okay, do something about it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, okay,
Yeah.
if you feel like it's an issue, what are you going to do about it? Like, how are
Yeah.
you going to, how are you going to impact them? How are you going to inflict some kind of change? And I mean, that's why kind of the reason I stayed in coaching for so long is because I was able to, at any given day, have a little bit of an impact on a couple hundred kids. Like,
Right.
I don't, you don't get that kind of reach very often. You know what I mean? And for where I live, and this is just being honest, and I mean, the country in general, depending on where you live, like there ain't a whole lot of Black people, right? So the
Right.
general impression of Black people is whatever they've seen on TV or heard on music, right? And so they get me, I'm bald, I got a beard, and they're like, a lot of kids are scared of me, and like, you know what I mean, like just off rip, right? Like I'm a decently sized dude too, and they're like, oh man, like I look mean just by nature. Um, and so they don't really get to experience it. So I had an opportunity to not only impact, the the kids of I hate saying this, kids of color, like Black and brown kids,
Yeah.
but then also like their classmates, their friends, like,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Like it's not just the music you see, and we're not just basketball players. And I get to say something to them that's going to impact them. So hopefully they go back and tell their brother, their sister, their cousin that, they had that talk with mom and dad about like, you know what, Coach Rod ain't that bad. Like, Coach Rod is like, he's pretty cool. Like he's a cool dude, and he don't play for the Knicks. You know what I mean? He ain't. You know what I'm saying?
And no, that's a great point, because that's another reason that I do like to contribute myself to the different areas that I do, and in the way that I do it. Like I was saying, like I'm able to show these kids a professional aside from the other aspirations that they're the typical aspirations that they go towards. But even in the music, um, to match kind of what my intent is and my message is, I could be out here in a dashiki every day, and that might that might match a little more to where I am mentally. But at the same time, I know that it's not even really that contrived, but at the same time, I dress how I do. I put on all the jewelry and all this just because I know that there is an image involved with attracting attention for people to even listen to you.
Right.
So I make sure that I make it look like something so that people will even listen to what it is that I have to say, because again, these kids are attracted to the glitter and gold, um, and people on a whole, they just like stuff. So I'm gonna let you see something is gonna look like something, but it definitely might not match what you expected to hear. And so again, that's why I just like to disprove notions of Black men. Like, we've gotten a bad rap, because of our reactions to what has been imposed on us.
Right.
And for as long as I can remember, I've been trying to just disprove people about what they think they're going to get from me in particular, but us as a whole. Like, you can't just say, oh, he's got tattoos, so he's going to try to rob me or whatever. Like, when I was 18 and got outlaw tattooed down my forearm, like, it wasn't because I wanted to be Tupac. My whole thing in my mind, operating under the Lord as a warrior. Nobody would assume that, but if you talk to me, I'm gonna tell you exactly what it means. Operating under the Lord as a warrior, like a rich man. Oh yeah, oh, you just all Richmond City, blah blah blah. No, it's way more that goes behind being rich. So again, my whole definition and motto and creed, like, is always just to add context and change people's minds about us and who we are.
Right. And that kind of lends to the, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
Speaking of books, where can people find your book? Where can they get themselves a copy?
America's Young Black Male 2000, Too Black, Not Black Enough, available on Amazon all day, every day. If you have Prime, you get free shipping.
Ooh.
yeah, that's big. I'm working on a new book. Not really concerned about sharing the title at this point. Picking Up Pennies. So within the next year, that'll be available as well. And yeah, man, I'm an avid reader, so I'm trying to add more contributions to the library for sure.
Awesome. I was going to ask you about that because I've noticed that you on Warren Buffett status. Like you getting several hours of book reading in because you always finish a book. So what's the most recent book and what's the next book on tap?
Just yesterday, day before yesterday. What did I just finish? Damn, I'm blanking that quick. Oh, I read is it Medgar Evers or no Eldridge Cleaver. I read a discussion with Eldridge Cleaver, who was a Black Panther leader, and this book was written while he was exiled in Africa, but no, super educational, and I just love feeding myself with enough ammunition to have conversations in any arena. So if the book looks appealing, I pick it up. So that was a cool read. Right now I'm reading a book on Black cowboys, which is super random, but I just go to used bookstores and whatever looks remotely interesting, I pick them up. So yeah, now I'm reading on Black cowboys, and after that, I have a stack of about 6 loaded up and ready to go. But I'm really big on nonfiction. If it's not theology, then again it's historical, autobiographies. Like yeah, I'm into a lot of things that are just continue to feed the muscle.
Okay, I like it. Black cowboys. We talking about Wild West, or we talking about West Philadelphia?
Yeah, we're talking about Wild West.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, the Great Migration and such, and yeah, just how we helped to build this whole thing westward.
I like it. It's something I gotta get more into. All right, so we know we can find the book. Where can we find the music?
The music is available on all of the outlets, all of the distribution outlets. So Apple Music, Tidal, Spotify. I don't know if anybody still listens to Pandora, but I should be there too. But yeah, D.Bledsoe, no space in between the Bledsoe and the D period. It's all one thing. Yeah, check me out. And the progression, I dropped 2 projects in the last like 6-8 months. Few videos, about 6 of those in the same amount of time. Yeah, just been working and been very blessed to be able to spread my message. God's message.
Yeah, yes, sir. And then where can they find you social media wise? Like where you at? Where you hiding at?
Social media, I ain't hiding. You can find it all. If you need to talk about real estate, either getting into it or me helping you buy or sell, whatever advice, I'm here. Or again, if you're looking for the music, if you're looking for my books, or looking for me dadding, I'm D.Bledsoe, not I am, but I am D.Bledsoe. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook too, I believe. I don't do Snapchat or TikTok. I am a little aged for that, but yeah, Instagram and Twitter, I'm heavy still.
Okay. All right. That's what's up. Yeah, me too, man. I got a TikTok, I think. I think I might even have a Snapchat that I signed up for like one day. And I was like, yeah, this is not it. I can't do it. I
Yeah,
can't keep up.
I had them both to spy on my son, but I don't even do that on them anymore. I'm cool.
Man, that's a true dad thing right there, boy.
You know it.
All right, man. So we're gonna wrap it up. I got one more question for you, and it's probably actually more your question for me. Is there one question that I should have asked you, but I didn't know enough to ask?
One question that you should have asked me but didn't know enough to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, you knew enough, but again, what's next? I'm writing another book. What's next? I got a couple more albums coming out, but I'm not putting pressure on myself to tell you when those are coming out. What else is next? I got a new baby coming in about 2 weeks. What's up, girl? What's next? My son is going off to college in a couple months. So yeah, I got a whole lot of next, but I guess that's the only question that you kind of did ask me, but I just wanted to reiterate anyway.
I like it. I like it. So a lot going on, man. A lot going on.
Yeah.
I appreciate you once again for coming on the podcast. I'm probably have to have you back, man. We have to have you back once the newest one is back in the house, so we could talk about newborn dad all over again, right? Like
It's all good. I love sequels, bro. You know, a lot of people hate on sequels. I love them. So part 2 is all good with me.
there you go. There you go. All right, man. I appreciate it once again. I'm sign us off real quick.
All right, appreciate it. Love you, bro.
All right, brother.